One of the things that I love, what is his name, Matt? James
Dumber.
James Dummer. One of the things that I really love about this Google memo guy, and we, you know, it was pretty much obvious to everybody that as soon as this guy, you know, got fired from Google. By the way, I just want to say as a side note, I think that there was an aspect of him getting fired from Google that very few people talked about, which was disturbing and problematic, which showed that, like, there's no labor protections. Even
unionized.
for, yeah, Google needs to be unionized. And because the notion that, you know, anybody, including a privileged worker and including a privileged misogynist, delusional asshole, can get fired like that is actually very problematic. One labor union guy, what I loved is he said something in a similar situation. He said, like, back in the heyday, he's like, you know, if there was a guy like this, said something like that, we would fight like hell to keep his job because of union solidarity and protecting everybody's employment. And then after we had won the victory, we would have caught him after work and beat the shit out of him. Which I actually think might have been a better lesson for this guy than turning into a minor internet celebrity, you know, frankly. But
he's in the wrong incentive sort of stream, I think.
Yes, he is in the profoundly wrong incentive stream. But the thing about it is that's actually the public service that this guy James Dummer is doing for all of us, or some other people say Damore, I say Dummer. What he's doing that's brilliant is we, like, I don't know how many times I could make this point, and Matt is very like-minded on this. Just because you test well does not mean you're a smart person. There might be overlap in some cases. In other cases, there might be people that are actually really quite brilliant that don't test well. And in some cases, I would actually argue there are people that are great, that test incredibly well, who are complete idiots. I mean, we start to realize that the absolute sort of narrow range of abilities that standardized tests are measuring, you start to maybe realize that, like, you know, just because somebody can throw an incredible curveball, we wouldn't call them a smart person. Might call them a gifted athlete. You know, I mean, you're testing an extraordinarily narrow range of sets, and you're not testing people's ability at all to look at the world structurally or think critically. You're basically, you know, especially a guy like this, you know, it's sort of like basically kind of like puzzles and math games and word games. I mean, can we look no further to, you know, Ted Cruz, a guy in complete intellectual and emotional arrested development with zero moral imagination and no ability to sort of think analytically outside of his fanatical ideology, but yet we've been drummed in so much that just because he went to a couple of brand name schools that are incidentally also occupied by, what was it, 30% legacy admissions, as an example, in the recent incoming class of Harvard, that means you're brilliant. So that's a major problem in our belief. And here comes James Dummer, after getting fired from Google, to come out and basically just do like a living clinic on Twitter, demonstrating that just because you tested well and just because you worked at Google does not even remotely mean you're smart. In fact, in this guy's case, he's so fucking stupid that I'm feeling bad about him losing his job. But not really, obviously, because he could just become Dave Rubin's co-host or something, and this is the easiest grift in America. He tweeted out yesterday, and this is a way to apparently, in this guy's mind, this Google memo guy's mind, to provoke a thorough conversation, or he's doing something here. The KKK is horrible. This is already and period. And we're out. Weird phraseology, but leave it at that. And I don't support them in any way. Now the horns are really starting to blare with like the warning music. It's like alert, 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 alert. You're about to write something really fucking... You're either about to write something that, if you go in one direction, might actually be very funny, but that's going to be the type of thing that this guy does not have the cognitive ability to do, because he has a very low humor quotient. I say that as somebody with a very high humor quotient. Or you're about to write something kind of just mind-expandingly stupid. And that's, of course, what he did. The KKK is horrible. I don't support them in any way. But can we admit that their internal title names are cool? E.g., Grand Wizard.
So he supports them in nomenclature.
I also just like, what is the... And then he did a poll, and we should read the poll, because this is apparently where he was trying to do some real work here on the culture of open idea. Yes. No, the names aren't cool. No, that's racist. No, other. I do want to say as an addendum that if you're an adult and you think the name Grand Wizard is cool, that's a problem. But let's just go to the no other. Okay, so then he goes, so then there was, of course, a torrent of responses to this, and he goes, you know you've moralized an issue when you criticize its heroes or acknowledge any positive aspects of its villains. So I guess this is the part, and I like that he's already moved to at least he's finally showing what he thinks here, because he's already moved from like, hey, the KKK is horrible, but they had cool names. He's doing like some hacky bullshit joke. And I guess this is the part where it's like, hey, you know, Martin Luther King Jr. was a really bad guy because somebody told me one time he wanted people to have living wages, and the Klan has cool names. I'm assuming that this is the this is like how he would teach about the civil rights era to his children. And then he goes, it's like teaching your children to be responsible in drugs and sex without addressing the fact that they can be fun. I guess what I would just say, and if I was designing a test for future employees for producing my show as an example, I might do a verbal test where I would say it would be a this is like this or not like this. So Matt, let's just do, for the sake of this example, let's do a little test. Would you say that the inability to find equivalent moral footing between the civil rights movement and a terrorist organization and a private family talk with your kids, with, by the way, no explanation of what these kids' ages are, by the way, about sex and drugs,
but,
that didn't acknowledge that those things might have some allure, do you find those things to be equivalent, the same, dissimilar, or radically this guy's out of his fucking mind dissimilar?
Censorious is how I find that question. But
Pass.
So Damore deleted that poll, and then he went on to tweet this.
In retrospect, oh wait, my attempt to raise the issue of why some people are attracted to pure evil like the KKK gave many the wrong impression. If there's people, you think there were people that joined the Klan to terrorize and murder black people because they're like, hey man, I don't want to burn their fucking houses down, but Grand Wizard, come on. I mean, I don't know what kind of open exchange of ideas we can have if you can't acknowledge that I've got some valid concerns about MLK and we got cool names. I mean, god damn, where's Dave Rubin when you need him? 2 of 3. Understanding what attracts some people to these vile organizations can help us better prevent that from happening. So then, first, he did a thing that seemed like a stupid joke. Then he wrote a point that was demented and insane and censorious. Then he tried to backtrack and cover himself, and now he made a point which is so general and so vague that actually nobody would suggest that that was something not worth pursuing. I just think that everybody that studies things like why people study terrorist organizations probably would not start at it's a cool name. And then
there's a few tweets I thought really captured, you know, because the thing about James Damore now is I'm sure he has quite a bit of followers, but a lot of them are just hate following him like I am.
Right.
And so actually a few people were posting this at Drill Tweet, DRIL, who it says
this is good.
Issuing correction on a previous post of mine regarding the terror group ISIL. You do not, under any circumstances, quote, gotta hand it to them.
What I actually really think is amazing about this is that the broader ecosystem of, like, you know, of these idiots, like, you know, a Rubin or something, it's like they actually probably would suggest that people like us would actually say, like, not only do you have to hand it to ISIS, but, like, somehow ISIS is justified because of U.S. imperialism, which is, like, an actual position that exists basically nowhere in the left, like literally, including like among the left that I have strong disagreements with on foreign policy. Like, that is a just a pure figment of imagination position. But at the same time, they are actually like really into the like, gotta admit, Klan has cool names. So James Damore, thank you. You are living proof and evidentiary support for the proposition that testing well and working at Google does not make you intelligent.
I also like this this boring as heck tweet where he took a picture of a bunch of different names of Klan titles, like Clayby as treasurer, Clud as chaplain, Clocard lecturer, Clayliff, and he's like, I'm the fired Google guy, and this shit is extremely cool to me.
Oh my god. Wow. It's like it is the most like perverted. I mean, you read like whether it's very sort of like exalted notions of like sort of expanded empathy and moral imagination that you might find in like a piece of writing of like a discourse of the Buddha, or like the pragmatic, like if you read Nelson Mandela's account of like, I needed to understand my adversary's position and I needed to establish certain, like I needed to do these things, and just this sort of like utterly stupid world version of like, I don't want to have moral imagination for anybody outside of this like weird little box of like knockoff Wikipedia, John Stuart Mill or Karl Popper open society, which I don't even properly understand. But I have this like pathological obsession with like empathizing with, just some of like these sort of like worst people in the world, but on terms that will not even get us to understanding how to prevent people from joining these organizations. Maybe because secretly Google guy maybe does want to create. Maybe I could see like, hey, Google guy, you're interested in the Klan too? Yeah, Grand Wizard is kind of a cool name. This is Peter Thiel. But there's a lot of poor people in the Klan. Maybe we could think of something different, Google guy.
James Damore, I tweeted this at one of his tweets, and I said, we should preserve you in formaldehyde as like a platonically perfect specimen of the Dunning-Kruger effect, which is basically like you have some sort of intellectual competence in one limited area and over-apply it to everything in the entire world, because this is what this guy does.
Wait, what's that? What's the Dunning-Kruger effect? It's almost as if that's happening to every field in America right now.
Political consultants, brain surgeons,
computer people. It's really complicated.
Hi, folks. Sam Seder here. We still need your help on our Patreon page. YouTube ads have come back, but not nearly as much as we had before. So if you can help us out, any little bit helps. Head over to our Patreon page right at this URL, and you'll help us keep helping you by making videos